What's going on, nation? Welcome to a little Saturday morning chat, Friday evening. Whatever's going on, we're here. We're talking about it, hanging out. Beautiful conversation ensuing. Zero people in the chat, zero people in the log. I love to talk to myself. I'm a professional at it. That's where the channel has been created, actually, in the mind, the wandering mind of the shark. So, those of you guys that will tune in later, I will talk to the nothingness of the universe, and it's a beautiful thing because, truthfully, I think that self talk is kind of the creation of all person's enterprise and entity anyway. So, not going to wait around for people that are obviously out hanging out and having a great time. And I appreciate you guys that are all having a beautiful life. I am an entrepreneur, so I work weekends. Most of my business, entrepreneurial, celebratory environments do come on weekdays. It's been a journey on that, obviously. So many times that I was out in the middle of the morning on Tuesday, people saying, "Wow, Shark, you're a crazy man." I was like, "No, guys, I actually work weekends and I work pretty much 24/7." So if I want to get a minute, if I want to get a half second Tuesday morning, whenever it may be, I might go out for a beer on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. And I do, as much as I love myself for that, I love the enterprise of what I do, and I love you guys for following and the whole thing. I do always want to make that point because I feel like there's a certain level of disconnect between people where people will see me walking down the street drinking a beer at 7 in the morning and think that I'm drinking 24/7 to appease a habit. It's actually quite the opposite. I really don't drink ever. I just drink in isolated, bizarre moments because I'm an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs only get time off in the middle of the night on a Tuesday morning. So it's just one of those bizarre paradox moments that I run into. And here we are on a Saturday morning, two people in the chat. If you guys are in the chat, fire up some conversation. I'm here for it. I'm not going to sit here and just bloviate over whatever's going on. If you guys are in here and have some conversation, let me retweet this so we get some more people in here. I know people are out. People will click in, see what's going on. And I do have a beer on hand. I'm sitting here talking about not drinking beer. We're going to drink a beer and have a conversation. I have a couple comments on NBA and pro football and the whole situation. So just going to retweet this real quick and let's see what's going on here. And anyway, gonna drink this one beer. I've been drinking High Lie on a regular basis. Got a little tired of High Lie, I won't lie. Uh, Not trying to get the rhyme scheme going on, but found this one actually real nice. I've had a couple of these tonight. Delicious, I would say. It sounds ridiculous for a beer, but this is a great beer. Florida Avenue Luminescence IPA, 7%. Got this in the rack here. So let's drink to this. Let's fucking hang out for a little bit. Cheers to you guys, and appreciate you guys immensely for your entire enterprise of life. That is a beautiful looking beer, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful looking beer. And I will say it tastes just as good. It's absolutely delicious. These juicy IPAs, no bitterness whatsoever. I mean, I gotta say, my guy Greg Peterson, I worked with him a couple years ago in baseball. I think we might be doing some collaboration college basketball commentary coming up in the next few weeks. But he's doing beer reviews, and I was saying to him, "My man, I mean, like, please do. It's a beautiful thing to drink a couple great beers, enjoy your life, and just truthfully enjoy what's going on." I know this particular beer, Florida Avenue Luminescence IPA, is not available internationally, so it is what it is. But I'm gonna fucking enjoy it. Let's talk some sports and let's talk some avenues of life. And giving you guys a couple shout. Jaden Bath, what's up, brother? So, thoughts on K State, Texas? That's a noon game, Big 12 showcase. Huge spot in the Big 12. Truthfully, no thoughts on it. I hate to say that, but no thoughts on it. Just when I went through the card today, or excuse me, going back this week, I went through it on Tuesday afternoon. one of the reasons why I have primetime plays is not because of some sort of convenience or just, I don't know, like lethargy, if you want to call it that. I actually just didn't like the early card. And I just thought that there were really sharp lines, merge dynamics, whatever. I know a lot of you guys probably haven't gone through the Knowledge for College show in full detail, 35 minutes in that encyclopedia, if you will. But I really go into detail on why we have these four games targeted in prime time, and it's not just because they're later in the day and I feel like waiting around or whatever's going on in my life. I really just felt like there was a lot more access. So I'll pull this game up because I want to engage you guys and I want to talk about it. Um, when I looked at the early card, though, I got to be honest with you, I did not really like the the spots. I thought there was a lot of merge. So we got 23 Kansas State at Texas, 12 noon, Fox Sports, big time stuff here. Texas won last year 34-27 on the road. You get a revenge game. See, this is where I don't like the spot. Both teams come in effectively the same environment, and it's I hate to keep saying this because it's not to be long-winded or patronizing or anything. It's more so because this is just the continuous conversation of Sharky Waters Nation and what we talk about. So when you find one team on a dub 3 coming into the game, and you find the other team on a dub 2, they're effectively in the same spot. The best spots are where one team's on a losing streak and one team's on a winning streak, and the law of averages are converging in a beautiful merge point where one team is way too hot and one team is way too cold. Both of these teams just generally in this matchup are in the same spot. And it's one of those spots where, it's sexy. It's a big game. You want an angle. You might be going out to the bar, 12 noon here. This is East Coast. It's 11 a.m. This is big time stuff. Mimosas, get those drinks in the system. I'm here for it. I got to be honest with you guys, though. I just think that the spot just is stinky. And I don't mean stinky in a good way where there's an angle on a contrarian side. I just think it's mergy. It's tough. And I'll go through it in a little more detail. And Bobby Candyman, what up, brother? Cheers to you, bro. Have a nice little beverage here myself. When you look at Kansas State, I'll go through it here briefly. Let's go through it. Started the campaign, pretty lackluster win against FCS. Hammered Troy. I mean, hammering Troy does appear to be slightly more representative now. Troy is obviously a pretty solid team out of the Sun Belt. At Missouri, tight loss. Missouri's pretty damn good. Tight game there. At Oklahoma State, 29-21 loss. At Texas Tech, that was the backup quarterback situation. I should say third string quarterback situation. That's not representative. When you look at what they've done on the road here, I think that the fact they didn't cover as a favorite at Missouri and the fact that they didn't cover as a favorite at Oklahoma State, I don't know. I think honestly, if I had a free play in this game, I would actually lean towards Kansas State. I think the fact they didn't cover as an underdog and they were real tight material there, I think that they're actually more due to cover as an underdog as opposed to cover as a favorite in that situation. You look at Texas here. Texas, I'm looking at it now for the first time, guys, so bear with me. Did not go into immense detail here, but I think it's interesting regardless. Obviously, Texas had a huge Week 2 win at Alabama. Lackluster opponents since Wyoming, Baylor, Kansas. Kansas had a backup quarterback, not really telling you a story. Home loss in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. At Houston, 31-24 non-cover tight one last week. BYU, grease fire, introductory campaign in the Big 12. I would lean Kansas State here, guys. I would lean Kansas State if I had to free play this. Don't love it, but I do think if you're getting what's the line here? You're getting +4, I think. +3.5 now. I think the underdog is the right side here. And I think that the revenge angle, shortness of the number, Texas showing non-quality opponents mostly in their wins. I think Kansas State travels here better. As I mentioned, as a favorite on the road, not showing significance, but I think as a dog might have a better representation on the number. Um, and that's the comment on that. I don't. I'm not going to be playing that, but I do think at high noon, obviously Fox Sports, big time shit. Fox Sports. I love their lineup. I love Brady Quinn. I love my guy, Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer. I got to be honest with you guys. I was watching the Netflix show with Urban Meyer at UF. He reminds me a lot about myself, and it sounds anecdotal, disconnected. I get it. You don't want to say whatever the fuck, but truthfully, he and I are both peak ultimate competitors. We literally win or do nothing else. And like tonight, I lost in the NBA. I went 0-2. I was sitting around commiserating for 3 hours. That's why I'm on here because I'm so fucking annoyed, honestly. And like I just don't lose as a person. Like I hate losing. When I win, I'm still fearing losing. Like that's how intense of a person I am. And I'll say that again. When I win, I still fear losing. And when I lose, I have like this scourge in me where I'm like, let's fucking go. It just jacks me up. And I'm so hyped for college football Saturday. I think we're gonna go 5-0, guys. I'm not even lying to you guys. Like I will explicitly state this right now. The NBA Friday bullshit tournament, whatever. I was not feeling super good on that. Just candidly, it's an unknown. We don't know how these teams are going to react. Week 10 college football, big time stuff. Matchup data analysis. I think we're going 5-0. And I'm telling you guys that not because I'm trying to sensationalize. I'm just being dead out honest in terms of the confidence of these plays. I love these plays on Saturday night, guys. Love these plays. Love these plays. Christopher Moltisanti, live functionality, baby. You know it. I know it. Let's fucking go. And encourage you guys, anybody who's not in the chat, drop some comments, drop some plays. Let's talk about it. We'll go through a couple more early plays because I know people want early action. And I know that early action is fun, obviously. You get up at, whatever hour, 8, 9, 10, you want to fire off a noon slate. So I'm right there with you guys. So we'll talk about it for a minute. Ohio State at Rutgers, minus 18.5. I think that's a toss line. I think you're really gambling that. I think that probably does finish somewhere between 17 to 24. Just not a lot of access there. Wisconsin, 9.5 at Indiana. I think Wisconsin is probably the side in that game. I don't love the game from that standpoint, laying chalk juice on the road in conference, but I do think Indiana is very down at this present point. And I do think Tanner Mordecai and the boys could turn up on the road in conference there. Again, all leans, nothing official, but I do think that Wisconsin's probably the lean. I think they might actually win the game by 10 points. If you get that at a hook CLV point on a 10 finish, you're obviously covering. I think Nebraska, Michigan is a toss. I think the under is obviously very, very low, 34.5. I think you're obviously kind of an unknown there. Matt Rule, first game in this conference position versus a highly ambiguous Michigan State team, new coach, interim coach, hard to read. I think Nebraska probably covers. I think you could get a 3-point push here yet again. If you guys bet Big Ten football, it's sharp. It's one of the sharpest conferences in FBS American football. I think Florida has some access. Arkansas is really, really low this year. I think if you want to gamble on that, I would lean towards Florida at noon in Gainesville. I do think that the 3.5 is a gross line inherently. I think there could be margin here. Arkansas, again, is really repeatedly terrible. Couple guys in the chat: Notre Dame, Clemson, Ole Miss. Let me keep going down the list here. Ole Miss 3 against Texas A&M. Good question. This is actually a very interesting game here. This is a big-time game, ESPN high noon special. Honestly, I would lean towards A&M here. I think Ole Miss is running a bit of a clean campaign. I think A&M is due for upward movement. They've had a couple of losses recently that were kind of on the hair of a win or a loss. And I think that, a lot of these games, as much as people want to make it into a huge matchup, rivalry, must win, this, or that, oftentimes it does go straight back to just data and statistics. Texas A&M is now unranked, and this team has immense talent on both sides of the ball and a championship-winning coach in Jimbo Fisher. I would lean to the road dog here. I really would. I think that there's just an access point here that speaks to a mild upward movement off a lackluster sample some tight losses, small window plays, kind of holding A&M back, and Ole Miss maybe being slightly more advantageous in their sample in recent history. And I think, oftentimes in SEC football, I made the comment about Big Ten, but I think SEC is right there with it. Sometimes you just got to get lucky. The games are tight. It's going to come down to one play either side of the ball. I think this is a tight game without question, but I do think that slight numerical edge here to A&M on that number. Notre Dame Clemson, is that a noon game? I was going through the noon ones. Let me keep running down the board here. Navy Temple, I think that's a toss. I think ESPN Plus game there. You look at that game. Navy won the game by 7 last year with Pete Line. Probably a dead toss. Army Air Force 17.5. Probably a toss. I think you're probably looking at an under there, but I think the game is probably just an absolute gamble. FAU UAB, also ESPN Plus 4-4 FAU, UAB 2-6. Revenge game UAB. FAU needs a win. I think that's a chalk special game, but I do think FAU probably gets the W there. For those of you guys who want to gamble, 3:00 Eastern within this this particular matchup. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I think FAU is probably the side. FAU is to a certain degree lackluster this year, but I do think they'll probably get the win here. I think UAB is highly lacking in quality off a couple big-time campaigns, losing their quarterback, losing their running back to the NFL. I believe the guys are a backup running back on the Vikings right now. I believe their starting quarterback from last year transferred to a bigger school. I don't have it off the top of my head, but pretty sure UAB is very down this year. I think Florida Atlantic's probably the side there if you guys want to gamble at 3:00. Clemson at 12. Let me scroll back down there. Notre Dame Clemson 12. I see that at 3. Okay. Yeah, I would say this. Taking a breath. But I would say I think this is a Clemson spot, guys. It is a Clemson spot. I think this is where Notre Dame potentially hits the wall. I think Notre Dame's a little too hot. I think the fact that Notre Dame covered very, very loosely at Duke is a telltale sign to coming south in their efficiency. The fact that they got hammered at Louisville also speaks to this. And obviously off of back-to-back blowout home wins against USC, biggest win in a long time for this program. Of course, new program with Marcus Freeman at the helm. And, of course, a blowout last week, 58-7, outscoring their opponents 106-27 in the last 2 weeks at home. Egregious. Sell that. Don't continue to buy that on the road. This team is too hot. I didn't talk about it with the gun. The gun is a huge Notre Dame fan. I think he probably wants them to win. I think it's a great spot for Clemson, actually. I think this is where Notre Dame is far too hot. They don't function well on the road, particularly in this conference setting. This is the third game they've played this year. Fourth game, excuse me. They did play at NC State as well. 2-2 ATS. I think this is where Clemson might get off this little mini schneid that they're on. And you guys know I've faded Clemson twice this year, both correctly. I kind of have a feel for Clemson, if you will. I faded them against Florida State, and I also faded them against Miami. This is where they come home. Two losses on the road, and both tight, both one-possession losses. I'm talking myself onto Clemson right now, guys. I think this is a great little buy low. Part of the reason why I don't put action on these spots is just purely because at noon I'm barely waking up. As I mentioned before, I get up right around that hour, and I do put reasonable money on these games. So it's one of those things where I have to get myself engaged in the competitive moment, if that makes sense. I know some people are gambling 24/7. They got international tennis overnight, and they're all over the place. I'm not exactly like that. I do kind of segregate my life a little bit. So I do like to have my wits about me in the morning before I'm really in there for 3 or 4 digits. But it is what it is. I'm just looking at it right now. This is a really good spot for Clemson. I'm actually shocked that the gun didn't have this, but it actually speaks to the gun having his fandom. with Notre Dame because I think he is a huge Notre Dame fan. So I'm not going to go official with it, guys, because that it is what it is. But I think Clemson's actually a very good look here at noon. Very good look. Very good look. Gonna take a sip of beer. I want to look at it a little further. Oh, Jaden, I didn't even see you say if you go official. Well, maybe I will. Let me take a sip of beer. The beer will open up the mind further. Cheers, guys. Appreciate you guys so much. Saturday morning here. Let's fucking go. Beautiful one. All right, let me look into a little more detail here. Okay, so Notre Dame's favorite at -3. The total's 44.5. So, last year the game was 35-14. That's 49. It's coming down to 44.5. They're basically telling you this is going to be a super tight game. Super tight game. Let me just look at the matchup analysis from last year very briefly as a cross-referencing point. Okay, November 5th, 2022. Let's check that out. Notre Dame, Clemson, November 5th, 2022. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so Clemson was favored -4 on the road last year and lost handily 35-14. Now Notre Dame is favored on the road, which speaks to the fact that the books have no idea what's going on here. If the road favorite last year loses emphatically 35-14, line functionality is non-existent, actually. So we're not really going to look at that. And of course, this is not conference football, so it's very, very loose stuff. Line functionality generally applies to matchup data historically, not where two teams don't really have a lot of matchup and rivalry analysis. This is. Let me go a little more into detail right now because I think this is interesting. The line is irrelevant, so we've already classified that as totally irrelevant. Let me just look at this real quick. Another thing about capping college football like this, just in terms of very generic standards, not detailed analysis, is when you see Notre Dame ranked at 15 and Clemson unranked, super short line. And I always talk about this continuum analysis versus static analysis in the moment, but I think generally, when you see a team that's ranked laying such a short figure to a team that's 4-4 and like appears to the naked eye in the static moment as being mediocre, because that's how people would see it. I always try to zoom out to as if I was on a different planet just looking at these games without any prerequisite bias or knowledge. And if I saw a team that was supposedly far better based on record versus supposedly a mediocre team, I would assume even on the road, they should be laying at least a touchdown. So the fact that they're at -3 speaks to a shortness in the environment. And I think what most people fall trapped to is the fact that they just are so overwhelmed by their own eyeball test evaluation, where it really isn't that. It's just the law of averages. And the books are telling you with this line that these teams are incredibly evenly matched. And the matchup is pulling towards Clemson off a shitty sample prior. So I think that's pretty much what's going on here. Ziggy Balls, what up, brother? Jaden, I love to do it for you guys, and I'd love to do it for myself. It's fucking dominant. Let's go. Looking at Notre Dame here. Yeah. So the last time Notre Dame, this is a unique spot for Notre Dame because they haven't had, or actually, no, they haven't had a conference road game off a win all year. And this is actually kind of where college football is not so much schedule scaling and like detailed analysis within the calendar because these spots are so unique to themselves. This is the first time all year that Notre Dame is playing I said conference. I didn't mean conference. I meant more representative. But this is the first time all year that Notre Dame is coming off of a home win and cover, going on the road to play the ACC. So the last time they went on the road and played the ACC, they were off a loss versus Ohio State, that horrible backdoor. And then they went to Duke and did cover the spread 21-14 minus 5.5. Very sharp, I will say, very sharp. This is basically the moral of the story on this game. This is very sharp. It's going to be very sharp. I think neither team plays down. I think the advantage comes to Clemson. I think that the side in this game is Clemson at +3. I think that you're basically free rolling a push on that spot. I think Clemson loses this game by 3 points on the number or wins the game. So I'm not going official on this broadcast because I'm sitting here having a beer and I would like to at least take a step back from the intensity of a conversation on a live broadcast to at least put some money on this. But I do think that Clemson is the right side here, for sure. But I do think it'll be tight. I don't think there's a ton of exploitability on the number. I think the number is going to be pretty tight on there. So just for what it's worth. And Bob Candyman, the gun, Bob, the gun loves the Candyman Can, and we love you too, bro. You're a dog. Jaden Betts, appreciate you, man. You're a dog. Appreciate you, man. So yeah, if you're gonna take +3, I think it's the right side. But again, I just advising as if we were sitting at a casino bar at 12 noon tomorrow. I would say to you candidly, I think you're gonna sweat here. I don't think this has got blowout margin on either side of the line. So I would say, bet accordingly and get ready to sweat. But I think you're on the right side for sure. Many other games to discuss. Many other games. I'm willing to go through it. And let me just retweet real quick, just see if more people want to come in here. No shade to you guys. 8 people in the chat, 5 likes. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like and retweet. Obviously, that will bring more people into the chat. And obviously, I don't expect this to pop on a Saturday morning here at 3 in the morning. But as I always say, we're just trying to have a conversation at all points of time. And it's the center point and basis for this channel. And going to take another sip, guys. Get a little water in me first. Going back to the point that I made before about how you don't want to play the Kansas State game because both teams are on winning streaks coming into the game. This Notre Dame Clemson has availability on the polar opposite perspective, which gives it more credential. Clemson L2, Notre Dame Dub 2. So I think there's no way around it. I think that Clemson probably is the right side here. Let's go back to the card here and see what's going on. Bunch of, I'd say, fairly trash games at noon. Tennessee, UConn, big spread, low total, going to be right on the number. Utah, Arizona State. I wanted to buy Utah. I felt like the Utah line was very tight here, very tight. I think people want to fade Arizona State off a huge win against Wazoo last week. The only problem, in my opinion, is that Arizona State, honestly, at 2-6 straight up is, I would say, kind of a bye team. Most of their losses have been really, really tight. You go through it the last couple of weeks. At Cal, lost by 3, 24-21. Lost to Colorado 27-24. Very representative effort at Washington, 15-7, and then a win against Washington State. I think that Arizona State probably keeps this close. Let's talk about Washington. I think Washington is actually trending to an outright loss, if I'm being honest with you guys. They've been flirting with complete bullshit, if you want to call it that, for weeks. This team barely got through Oregon at home. They were horrible against Arizona State at home, 15-7. Last week at Stanford, they escaped in a really lackluster game, 42-33. Even go back a little bit further at Arizona, one possession win, 31-24, huge favor, not even close to covering the spread versus Cal, a couple bullshit teams early season, Michigan State, Tulsa, Boise State. You know, I will say this. I don't love USC at all. I think USC is poorly coached. I think Lincoln Riley is the new age, just juggernaut, run and shoot, fast paced offensive coach who just doesn't coach an ounce of defense. And the team is just basically cliff diving every single time they're on defense. But I firmly believe that we're going to be fading them. Washington, that is, at least one of the next 3 weeks. They play Utah at home, which could be a little funky. The last 2 weeks of the season, they have to play at Oregon State on Saturday, November 18th. This is the spot that I'm looking at here. I think Oregon State in 2 weeks, that's where they go down. That's where they go down. I don't think they cover tonight at USC. I think USC will compete, but I think the spot they go down is Oregon State in 2 weeks. Saturday, November 18th, Corvallis, Washington. Corvallis, Oregon, I should say. This is where they go down, for sure. That's a big spot. That's a big spot. I love that fucking spot. Next week against Utah, of course, Cameron Rising redshirted this year, so the quarterback situation is always sketchy. Utah is going to compete. They're well coached, but you can't count on them to cover a spread on the road at Washington. But the following week, that's the spot. That's the spot. Washington's going to lose at Oregon State. And Oregon State's going to be fucking huge. And you're going to be getting over a field goal there, so I think you're going to be basically in a great situational spot against the spread where regardless of if Oregon State actually wins, you're going to cover the spread because they're probably if Washington somehow wins the game, they will probably win by a field goal at the highest level. So I think 2 weeks from now, circle your calendars, guys. Get ready to fucking make some money there. I think it's a beautiful thing. Absolutely, teeting around a loss, 100%, 100%, 100%. And again, it's maybe this week. Guns was talking about it off the air with me. He said he thought USC might beat them. I think he was looking at the exact same thing. The only problem is USC is just not good. It's one of those things where, Jaden, just directly to your comment, they are teetering around a loss 100%, but the opponent has to be of some sort of quality to actually put that loss on them. I don't know if USC is of that quality. I think Utah, even on the road at Washington, is of a higher quality. I mean, USC doesn't even have remotely close to a high-quality win all year. I mean, all their wins are against bottom feeders, and they've been flirty with a lot of the bottom feeders, too. Like, they have not been convincing in a long time. And I think that this could be a real tight one tonight. And I think that's why the total is so high. You see the total's been hovering somewhere between 75 and 80 points all week. Books are pretty much telling you this USC-Washington game this week is going to be just back and forth, super high score. I think it's very well graded. I think it's just going to be an instant classic. It's some games just don't have a gambling angle. They're going to be high scoring. There's not a lot of defense. You're going to be sweating the whole thing. So it's one of those things. But I do think in 2 weeks at Corvallis, that's probably where Washington goes down. And Oregon State has that circled on their calendar too. They have a good coach. They have a good squad. And they have, obviously DJ Uiagalelei or whatever his name is from Clemson last year. They're going to be turned up like so big. So I think we're in there for that for sure. Ziggy says, Sharky, do you like the NBA tournament concept? It's the first night of it. From the standpoint of losing both bets tonight, no, of course not. I don't really know what to make of it, honestly. I think that it's just kind of a gimmick, kind of a joke to a certain degree. I don't think any of the contending teams really care. And, the fact that it's still in the regular season calendar, in my opinion, what it really does for the sport of basketball is that on these specific nights where these calendar in-season tournament spots, all I think it does is it just makes teams that are slightly less capable of going to the playoffs more competitive on that night. And I think tonight was particularly chaotic from the standpoint that a lot of teams just were integrating new roster parts or missing pieces. So there were just so many different psychological dynamics within the rosters and the whole thing. And it just was not, it was just not what I was looking for at all. And I mean, I can't stand going 0-2 on a shit board like this. It annoys me. You know, I'm a competitive person. Like I care, and it just annoyed me. Like that's part of the reason why I cracked the beer and came out here, because I just wanted to chat with you guys. And I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me because I just felt like the whole thing was just very unknown. Like, you know, this was not your Friday night card, November 3rd. Usually it's a 10-game card. It's regular season. It's not an in-season tournament with all sorts of bizarre secondary motivational points from some sort of, you know, financial point for maybe guys that are underpaid and the whole thing. And it just I don't know. It didn't sit well with me, the whole thing. And obviously to go 0-2, I mean, it annoyed me immensely. You know, and I just sat here and I was just watching and I was just like, you know, we got Grizzlies at -2. They lose by 2 in overtime. And, you know, you talk about coin flips. You know, sometimes you just got to hit the coin flip. And we just didn't hit it. So it is what it is. Yeah. 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 Jaden, 100%. 100%. And, you know, again, with that play, you know, it's just one of these ongoing things psychologically with pro basketball where it's like whenever teams put their players back on the roster, the team just doesn't function well. It's sort of mind blowing from the standpoint that they're pros. They should integrate reasonably fluidly. I mean, Darius Garland comes back from a 3-game hiatus, Jared Allen the same, and they're utterly horrible, down what 20 points in the second half, and it's like clockwork. This is where it gets to a point of very interesting consistency, where it's like, is it even really about the fact that these guys have been injured, or do these guys just think to themselves like, oh, they haven't played, so we're going to just suck? And I firmly believe that, because I firmly believe that there's a back-to-back narrative that gets in the mind of these pro athletes in pro ball. I actually, this is my little hypothesis. I actually think they almost have a victimhood mentality in their mind on back-to-backs, where they grew up thinking that back-to-backs are terror zone, and they come into it with a bad mindset where like they're not actually that fatigued, like nothing's actually terribly wrong, but they're so preconditioned through AAU, high school, college, and pro, and the whole narrative and the media and all these teams and these coaches sitting players, where these guys like literally convince themselves that they can't play good ball on back-to-backs. And you just see, and I feel like there's so much deep psychology in professional basketball where like guys literally are like personification of like victimhood mentality in society, where people convince themselves that they just can't do something. And it's like it applies to the Ciroc on ice thing, where guys literally, good teams will play horrible basketball if one good player is removed from the other roster for a given night. Look at the Warriors tonight. The Warriors, Alexander didn't play tonight. And the Warriors played absolutely useless defense. They gave up 139 points on the road, and they still won the game. That is Ciroc on ice in a nutshell. But it's insanity because it's all mindset. They could have broken down and they could have held the Thunder tonight to 95 points, 87 points. They purely didn't try. And it's all psychology. The Thunder are younger. They could use more money. This in-season tournament is financially incentivized. They're paying these guys $500,000 if they win the title in Vegas or something like that. So the Thunder have all this motivation, and then they remove SGA from the roster for the evening, and the other guys ball out. Professional basketball is so psychological. Who's going to care on a given night? And it's so counterintuitive to what people think. People always think you take the best player off the roster, that's good. That's terrible if you're back in the other side. It's such a weird dynamic where if you take the best players off the roster, that's the team you want to back because the other team's not going to take the game seriously and the other players are going to show out. And as I said, if you put players onto a roster, superstar players that have not played in a while, the team is just going to act like they've never played together before. And it's mind blowing from that standpoint. It's like, guys, it's not that complicated. You're just running up and down for 48 minutes. Why do you guys forget how to play ball in a week? And I firmly believe that NBA players are so heady, they're so emotional, they're so scattered, and the game of basketball is so psychological. It's so psychological. It really is. It really is so psychological. Where so many of these matchups, you just have to say to yourself, who cares more tonight? And it's it's I would say it's kind of mind blowing from a professionalism standpoint, where you say to yourself, these guys are getting paid $200,000 to play basketball and they just don't show up for the moment. And it's I think the league has become overly politicized, and I think politicized in a very complaining, whining type of way. And I'm not taking a political side, but I do say the political side that they're on is very much complaining. It's not so much empowerment. And I do feel like there's just a very deep leftist, wokest basketball angle integrated into this player mentality. And that comes out in the motivation to show up for games. When players are integrated deeply into we're owed something, everybody's a victim, society sucks, that sucks the life out of you on a regular basis. And I'm not sitting here making political comments. There's egregious discrepancies in contemporary America and the world. But the point is, when you focus on negatives and deep subconscious negatives as your walking thought point, it holds you back mentally. And I speak from personal experience. I used to be a negative thinker. I used to think the world owed me something, that people owed me something. It was a shitty place. And I realized that got me nowhere into other than personal complacency and lack of action. And I firmly believe this. I think a lot of NBA players live in a world of complacency and victimhood. They're owed something. Everybody's a victim. We're victims. This sucks. And that's why you see a lot of complacency and inconsistency in professional basketball. Overpaid millionaires is not a cliche term. And I'm not a hater of players at all. I really love these guys, but I think you can love people and also evaluate them psychologically for what it is. I think they really have adopted a victimhood mentality, and I think it really holds them back. And I think that's why the competitive quality of the sport is very inconsistent, particularly in the first 3 months. So just making a comment on that, but I really think that's kind of the way it is. And taking a sip, guys. 10 guys in the chat, 6 likes. Hit the like button. Appreciate you guys. Just helps promote the channel. Cheers to you guys. And you know what I said, I do want to just reaffirm that point. This is not a hate point. I truly love NBA basketball players. I love their quality as athletes. But I think having experienced this so deeply myself, when you get into a group of people that all have a bit of a they owe us something mentality, it takes away from your own go getter, let's conquer, let's do right for ourselves mentality. And I think as a group, it's unfortunate, but the nature of the league has gone that direction. I think load management is a certain personification of that mentality, taking nights off because they just have to, this, and that. Not only that, the media just completely coming down on these guys at all points in time, taking the conversation out of the equation with these antagonistic questions and the continuous disconnect from the player to fan relationship. Just total chaos, really. Total chaos. And I think that the league is tone deaf to it. I think Adam Silver is a very good businessman, but I think he's very poor at general human psychology. And I think he does miss a lot of points within the way to market the brand. And I think the business side is oftentimes numerical and technological in this current world. It's not psychological. And I think that it really is a miss by him in environments, certain times. Jay's final take, what up, boss? Appreciate you, man. Great little conversation before on Twitter. I think that's exactly who we are. As I said, the watchers, man. Seeing people as a person is a huge personal power. Huge personal power. To be a living human being writing the book as you live. It's a beautiful thing, man. You're doing great stuff. Sending you all the vibes, man. You're a fucking beautiful person. And Kim C, I see you on that. Appreciate you on the comment, no doubt. And gonna wrap it up on that, guys. Just want to come on here for a little fire and drop a little chat. Don't want to over speak. Just gonna have the rest of this beer and go to bed. I've been up for close to 17 hours. So just want to come on here and shoot the shit and give you guys some good vibes and conversational points. Jay, let's talk soon. Bob Candyman, my guy. Kim C, what's going on? Jaden Bats, my guy. Roll one up, son. What up, Balls? You to know. Ziggy Balls in the house. And for those that will watch later, I see you guys. I love you guys. It is immense conversation. It is Sharky Waters Nation. The gun will be on here at 10 a.m. with Pimp Slap Pod, my guy from Philly. Totally electric conversation from my guy. And, of course, Connor Mag picks. 5 top plays tomorrow, starting at 7 o'clock. Kentucky at 7. Get ready for that. It's going to be a dominant spot. Appreciate you guys so much. Love you guys so much. Take care of yourself always. And we will be on here in the morning. Sharky Waters Nation, 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave we got it. Let's fucking go.